You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. So we tried yesterday. We tried to do an early show, and it just didn't do very well. I'm not going to give up. I did skip this morning. Obviously, you're watching this in the evening. Chances are, if you're watching it live, you're watching it in the evening. So you know that we're going back to the original time. But I'm still hopeful to take that 9 a.m. slot as well. We are going to be expanding the show as quickly as possible to where instead of doing hour and a half, we're going to hopefully be doing at least 2 hours a day, split into two different segments or two different sections, two different shows, a morning show and an evening show. If you're watching on or listening to me on any of the other various networks, the best place to find me, where I'm going to be putting all of my shows, all of my segments, everything that I can find, would be on my new Rumble channel for discern.tv. You can find that at jdrucker.com/rumble1. That's jdrucker.com/rumble1. That will take you to the actual Discern TV Rumble page. So from there you can subscribe, and I ask, please do, because wherever you're watching me, chances are you're only getting part of the picture. Okay, I know that sucks. We want to get all Rucker, but no, the only place where I'm going to be putting all of my work is going to be on my new Rumble channel. So, and I'll put the vast majority of it will go on X, or will go on Frank's speech, or will go on my original Rumble channel if you're watching me there. But there will be some exclusive stuff that we put only on the Discern TV Rumble channel. So again, check it out. jdrucker.com/rumble1, the number 1. That'll take you to the page where you'll be able to subscribe. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube or BitChute or Getter or Brighteon or any of the other places listening to me on Apple Podcast or whatever, awesome. I'm not saying stop doing that. By all means, please continue to watch and listen to the show wherever you feel most comfortable. But if you want to get the full picture, the full Rucker experience, so to speak, that sounds like the Rogan experience, the full Rucker thing, then you'll do that by going to my new Rumble channel at jdrucker.com/rumble1. We've got a big show today. It's an important one because a lot of crazy things are happening just ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. And that's not by accident, to be clear. These things are happening because Donald Trump won. These things are happening around the world, and here in the United States, they're happening because the world is bracing for impact. I would say most, especially world leaders, but most people around the world are happy with this. Now, if you're a leftist, chances are you're like, oh my gosh, no way. Like 98% of the world absolutely hates Donald Trump, and it just so happens that the maggots, whatever, or blah blah blah. I do have one. I've got many family members that are Democrats. Nobody in my immediate family, nobody close to me is a Democrat, but some members of outside of my immediate family, they are Democrats, and they really do believe this. They legitimately think that it was just a strange set of circumstances. Joe Biden in his dementia, Kamala Harris being a bad candidate, not having enough time to prove that she was a good candidate, and then the assassination attempts, and it was just a fluke, because really, the vast majority of Americans hate Donald Trump, and everybody around the world hates Donald Trump. That's not true. I think most of the world is excited by it, and that truly terrifies, I would argue, the globalist elite cabal. That's why they are lashing out, doing anything they can to subvert President Trump's upcoming administration. So we've got a big show today. Let me see. What is my... Oh, yeah. This first story. This first story is a doozy. LA County land grab fears ignite. Somebody said they're going to turn Altadena into one big apartment complex. And my question is, was this the plan all along? I mean, stop it. Stop it. Okay, stop it with your conspiracy theories, Rucker. You said it could be a guerrilla warfare attack. It could be the climate cultists. It could be whatever, some version of domestic terrorism, domestic attack. But here's the thing. It's not crazy. Okay, it's a little crazy, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that the state of California, in their efforts to bring about, what is it, Smart LA 2020, was it 2028? Yeah, Smart LA 2028, or as they're now dubbing it, or Gavin Newsom is dubbing it, LA 2.0, is it possible that they really did do all this, kill all those people, destroy all this property for the sake of reimagining LA as a smart city / third world country loaded with apartments? And look, nothing wrong with apartments, to be clear, but the idea that you're going to hear about here in a second is a pretty ugly one, and I wouldn't hold it against them. I mean, considering that there's still some of us who think it's possible that they did all this so that they could get rid of evidence that that could be used from the Diddy tapes, anything's possible at this point. We have this article over at thelibertydaily.com from Tyler Durden over at Zero Hedge, cross-posted with permission, of course. It says, fears of a land grab have erupted across fire-ravaged areas of Los Angeles County, as local and state officials have already begun discussing plans for LA 2.0. One user on X commented, "Tell me this was a planned demolition without telling me this was a planned demolition." And there's that clip from Newsom. I played that last week, but it is Newsom basically talking about rebuilding LA, dubbing it LA 2.0 under the Marshall Plan-inspired initiative that signals major changes for the city. They've been talking about turning LA into a smart city for a long time, just as they were talking about turning Lahaina into a smart city for a long time. Now, all of a sudden, hey, fire sucked, but hey, since we had them, might as well engage in our evil machinations. I mean, our progressive plans. Back to the article. They are going to turn Altadena into one gigantic apartment complex, ex-user Bay Area State of Mind said, referring to local officials who want to change zoning in the Altadena area from single-family to multifamily. In other words, some officials want to usher in the construction of apartment buildings in so-called smart cities. Let's go ahead and play that.
But the most interesting element of my conversation with Mr. Giacoletti was when he talked about the possibility of, as we start rebuilding, starting to relax some of the zoning laws, especially in a more working class neighborhood like Altadena, so that rather than putting up single family residences, especially on parcels where people might not have the wherewithal to rebuild at all, we allow developers to start putting up duplexes and apartments. In other words, increasing density, but also increasing more housing.
What can you say? I mean, he said it. He said it there. It's a convenient inconvenience. Hey, since these homes are burned down, there's a lot of people that aren't going to rebuild on them anyway. Might as well let developers come in and put up apartments and duplexes. Again, I'm not against apartments. I'm not against duplexes. I'm not against multifamily housing at all. But there is a reason that zoning is done the way it is. Zoning is not just about, keeping the poor folks in their area. It's about making sure that you can appropriately control land values. Now, people say, but you shouldn't have to be able to control property values and land values at a government level. To some extent, yes, you can, and you should. Okay, we're not a communist Marxist nation just yet. There is still the idea of capitalism that is floating around in the United States. And this is an example of how they're basically engaging in it in a very nasty way, in what I would consider to be crony capitalism. But that's not to say that we shouldn't have zoning laws, zoning regulations. That's a discussion for another day. Let's get back to the article. Altadena and other areas in LA County could serve as a proof of concept for how the Democrat Party transforms single-family neighborhoods into apartment buildings in a world where citizens own nothing and will be happy. This, of course, goes all the way back to BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and the others that are buying up as much of the single-family housing as they can get their hands on. At least they were until very, very recently, but that's a whole other conspiracy that I'm not getting into today. The cause of the fire remains undetermined at this point. However, the rapid spread was caused by high wind gusts, and incompetence in the limit is indistinguishable from sabotage. Wow. That was from Elon Musk. The question of sabotage is a key topic on X, mainly because the main reservoir in the Palisades, which would have likely suppressed the fire in the early days, was completely drained and had been completely drained since February of last year. So, how? For those who don't know, I live out here. We had like record rainfall. Okay, prior to all that water getting sent out into the ocean. And again, another topic for another day. On Monday, Palisades homeowners sued the city of Los Angeles electric and water utility for not supplying enough water for firefighters. The plaintiffs claim that a reservoir in the area was drained, causing low pressure in fire hydrants. Was it drained intentionally and for this reason? We don't want to think it was, but what? I mean, like Elon Musk is saying, when your incompetence goes to that level, you have to start wondering, was this intentional? I've always said, if you were to take, let's say, 100-question multiple choice test, okay, 100 questions, multiple choice, A, B, C, D, right? If you were to just go through, nothing, and you were to just go through and push, fill in BC, all the way down, you're going to get some of them right, like about 25% of them. But what Democrats have been doing nationwide, but in particular in Commiefornia, they've been getting everything wrong. Every single policy, every one of them has been wrong. Now, to be able to do that is not just incompetence. It's not about not knowing the answer. It's about knowing the answers and intentionally getting them wrong. You can only score 0 on a multiple choice test if you know the correct answers and you actively and aggressively avoid them. That seems to be what the state of California is doing. And it could be for the sake of, as I've said many times, for the sake of tearing down cities, tearing down states, tearing down the nation, with the hopes of, or at least the promise of, rebuilding it under their Marxist vision. Again, like he said, own nothing and be happy, right? The Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Great Reset. That's what they're talking about. And to be able to do that, they have to destroy the United States of America. Now, they're telling people, such as Gavin Newsom, hey, we're going to tear it down, and then we're going to build it back up under this Marxist vision. But in reality, what the globalist elite cabal are doing is they're tearing it down, and if they can build it back up and, make America sort of level with the rest of the world, great. If they tear it down so much that it can't be rebuilt, that we just cease to exist, fine. They don't care. Either way, they win. There's advantages to both scenarios. For them, not for us, obviously. Back to the article briefly. As of Thursday morning, the Palisades and Eaton fires continue to rage, leaving dozens dead and counting, 10+ thousand structures destroyed and counting, thousands of households displaced, and entire communities leveled. Meanwhile, Democrats are already pushing the conversation to rezone some areas to accommodate high-density, communist-style apartment blocks. As one ex-user noted, tell me, we already said this, but tell me this was a planned demolition without telling me this was a planned demolition. All right, before the LA 2028 Olympics makes you wonder, and it does. It does make you wonder, what in the world is going on in California? Again, I think that at our heart, our better nature wants us to believe that this was just incompetence, that we just need to replace the leaders, fill up the reservoirs, rebuild the homes, get the insurance companies back in, change the policies, and everything will be okay. But we have to take into consideration the possibility the very distinct possibility that all of this was planned, all of this was intentional, that the fire's being set, that, hey, Mr. Homeless Guy, you go over here, go down the block, go start a fire, and here's a bottle of vodka. Or, hey, Mr. Illegal Alien, we could deport you. Or you could go over here and start a fire. The police have caught, I think, 4 or 5. It could be more. It's hard to keep track because the communication is so awful out here. But they've caught several arsonists already. Imagine who they're not catching. We keep seeing fires popping up. We keep seeing more bad weather, more winds coming in. They like to say, oh, climate change, climate change, climate change. Climate change does not start fires. Climate change, if you believe in climate change, I'm not saying you have to believe in man-made climate change, but if you do believe that this weather pattern that we're currently experiencing with high winds and very dry conditions, is that real? Yes, it is. It is real. That is happening. It's that season, that weather that's happening, but none of that starts fires. It's not always just power lines. It's not always just fireworks. It's not always just whatever. In some cases, and I would say the vast majority of cases here during these LA fires, these are caused by human beings actively, intentionally lighting them. So you can throw out your climate change argument. I'm going to stick with the idea that some forces, foreign, domestic, organized or not, intentional, either way, that people are trying to burn down Los Angeles. And some of those people might be the leaders that are allegedly supposed to be trying to help this state. Last year, my long-term storage food company, Prepper Farms, was partnered with and actually owned by another corporation. I know that nobody knew this. Very few people were even aware that this was the case because our production, our systems, everything was in place and working just as it should be. People would go, they would put in promo code JDR at prepperfarms.com. They would receive the maximum possible discount, as always, and then they would get their long-term storage beef. Things, what you didn't know and what we can now explain now is that this year, in 2025, we have gone back to the original ownership structure, and I'm very excited about that because that puts me finally back more in charge, and I am super excited about that concept, not because I crave power by any means, but because I feel that as an America First veteran-owned company that we need to focus on helping Americans to prepare for whatever is to come, whether it's natural disasters or emergencies or de-dollarization, food crises, bird flu, whatever it is. We do expect something to happen, which is why we built prepperfarms.com in the first place. The idea here is to get high-quality, all-American, all-Texas beef, the good stuff, ribeye, New York strip, tenderloin, all of that good stuff, and freeze dry it naturally to give it a 25-year shelf life. We don't add any preservatives. There's only one ingredient, and that's beef. Lasts 25 years in the bag, and that's awesome. So support this show, support me, support yourself and your family. Protect yourself for the future by stocking up on long-term storage, high-quality beef. Go to prepperfarms.com. That's prepperfarms.com. Use promo code JDR, and you will receive the maximum possible discount. Who controls Mike Pence? That's the question of the day. Mike Pence, of course, the former VP, the former running mate, the former confidant and advisor and alleged friend of Donald Trump, who turned out to be a backstabber, a traitor, all those various things that you can say about Mike Pence. Well, of course, he was selected. He was the one that was chosen by whoever, probably a combination of Big Pharma, Big Ag, and Big Food. He's the one that was picked to be the public-facing Republicans' attacker on Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I believe I even called this like a couple of months ago. I said they're going to try to go after RFK Jr. for his pro-abortion stances. Now, President Trump has been very clear about what RFK Jr. is going to do. He's been very narrow with RFK Jr.'s scope and his intentions. And RFK Jr., to his credit, he has been willing to set aside some of his own personal beliefs as long as he's able to do what he sets out to do, and that is to make America healthy again. So the question is, who really is paying, controlling, somehow coercing Mike Pence to come out and make a fool out of himself? For those who don't know, he's coming out, of course, against the abortion issue, and that's great. Look, I'm all in favor of ending abortion. I don't see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. doing anything to promote abortion, even as Secretary of HHS, and I'll explain why here in a minute. But here's Pence on with Russell Moore talking about why he is opposed to RFK Jr.
I might have been the first to call on Republicans in the Senate to reject the nomination of RFK Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services. You know, there are many aspects of the government that bear upon the issue of life, none more important than health and human services. It was one of the reasons why during our transition in 2016 and 2017, all of our candidates, first and foremost, were supporters of the right to life. Ultimately, our nominee, Secretary Tom Price, would move forward and advance the cause of life. And we made great progress. As you know, you were directly involved in a number of those issues through administrative action. But I understand people's desire to defer to the incoming president and the team that he has around him. But there's a reason why our founders gave the Senate the authority to advise and consent. It's the ability to help shape an administration and in some respects serve as guardrails around what the American people voted for. And I would just say to anyone in the sound of my voice today that the Secretary of Health and Human Services on a month-by-month basis makes more decisions that bear upon the sanctity of life and protections of religious liberty than any other member of an administration except the President of the United States. And so I think it's incumbent on the Senate now, in the Health Committee in the Senate, to ask the tough questions of RFK Jr., to get the answers, but ultimately, my hope is that the Senate will reject his nomination as Secretary of HHS and give President Trump an opportunity to nominate any number of men and women who are eminently qualified to lead health and human services, but also would bring with them a deep commitment to the sanctity of life.
So I have a few points of contention, obviously, with Mike Pence and his statements. Number one, he says that it's the Senate's responsibility to help to shape an administration, and that's not true. That was never the intention of the founders. That was never the intention of their role to advise and consent. They're supposed to determine if the president is trying to put in people who are not qualified or who are not patriotic. Okay, that was the intention here. The idea was, hey, are we putting in foreign agents? Are we putting in spies or people who can't do the job? And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is definitely qualified to do the job of Secretary of Health and Human Services. Number two, it's funny that he's coming out, and I'm trying to blah, 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 blah. This is a guy that refused to back Donald Trump. This is a guy who he gave a de facto endorsement of Kamala Harris, and people are like, no, well, technically he didn't. No, technically he did. Kamala Harris even used his name multiple times, as did her campaign. They invoked Mike Pence throughout their campaign, saying that even his vice president won't endorse him. Even Mike Pence won't endorse him. Now, what does that say about, blah, 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 blah. Republicans are waking up, and look, Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and Mike Pence. And so he did give a de facto endorsement to someone who wanted to allow abortion up until and possibly beyond birth. So don't give me this whole, conscience or whatever. Look, the cabinet is an extension of the president. Okay? They're not there necessarily to set direct policy, to set their own policy, other than what the president allows them to do. So if the president says, hey, RFK Jr., let's make America healthy again, go ahead and go after big pharma, go after big food, go after big ag, let's get rid of all the chemicals, let's do those kind of things. Don't talk to me about the environment. Don't talk to me about about abortion. Don't talk to me about those other things. Keep the status quo there, but here's what you're supposed to do. And then RFK Jr. will say, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And he's going to go out and he's going to try to make America healthy again. The notion that, is RFK Jr. going to go out there and say, I'm going to go after big food and try to make our food better for us, but only if we allow abortion? No, that's not how it works. And Mike Pence knows this. Mike Pence is a hired gun. That's it. Okay, let's be very crystal clear about that. And when I say hired, I'm not saying that he was necessarily paid. Who knows? Maybe he was blackmailed. Maybe he was bullied. Maybe there was a trade-off. Maybe whatever. Maybe he's got a nice cush job waiting for him somewhere. Who knows? We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But here's the thing, and this is very concerning to me that Pence is being thrown out there, because he really doesn't have influence over the senators. He doesn't. He doesn't have very much influence over really very many Americans at all anymore. He demonstrated that during the 2024 primaries when he was barely a blip on the radar despite being the former vice president of the United States. He dropped out early because he failed so miserably to get his message across. They're not expecting, they being big pharma, big food, big ag, they're not expecting senators to sit there and say, well, if Mike Pence says it, then I guess maybe we should really, stop the confirmation of Mike Pence. No, that's not what's happening here. This is a public front. They're lobbying behind the scenes. They're pressuring and bullying and bribing and blackmailing behind the scenes to try to get at least 3. That's what they'll need. They'll need 3, possibly 4 senators to not vote for RFK Jr. Who are they? And if we start seeing any objections, if we start seeing defectors, so to speak, those who are not going to support the President Trump's agenda or the Maha movement, we'll know that those are the ones that have been gotten to. This is just basically the public-facing excuse. Okay, well, Mike Pence, we're putting him out there not because we think he's going to be able to sway any senators, because he can't, but because when we sway the senators to do our bidding, they can look to say well, Mike Pence kind of got the ball rolling on this. It's just so that there's an excuse for whoever they're trying to coerce, whoever they're trying to pressure, to bribe, to blackmail, whatever. If we do see RFK Jr. face major headwinds from Republicans, if there are Republicans who vote against him, it won't be because of Mike Pence. It will be because of what they're being lobbied behind the scenes. We're not going to know about it. We'll just be able to tell who they are based upon their votes itself. And this just brings up one more quick point. It disgusts me very much so that this is even a thing. Confirming cabinet positions, confirming an administration, the various roles that need to be confirmed. This was never an issue until this year. In other words, there might be a lot of objections to some of Joe Biden's cabinet picks, but you still saw 10, 20, 30 Republicans will vote in favor of them because that's what the Senate has always done. I mean, that's the standard operating procedure. You voice opposition, you ask tough questions, but at the end of the day, is the person qualified? Yes. Is the person a traitor? Are there risks there? No. All right, fine. I disagree with him, but he fits the bill. Let's get him into Biden's administration. That's not going to be the case this time around. You're not going to see a whole bunch of Democrats voting in favor of Trump's nominees, and that's a vastly different scenario than what we've seen any time in the Senate's history. What does that tell us? And why is nobody else talking about that? Why is nobody else bringing up the fact that confirmations for cabinet picks are so rarely controversial, they're so rarely objected to by anybody, I shouldn't say by anybody, but by enough people in the opposition party that it could actually make a difference. We're likely going to see some of Trump's nominees get 0 Democrat votes and maybe even lose some Republicans. That's unheard of. And yet apparently, for whatever reason, that's the new normal. Will Hunter Biden receive millions of dollars in insurance money for his lost, quote unquote, art? Gosh, I hope not. There have been reports that some in the Biden family are claiming he lost millions of dollars worth of art amongst the 200 that he allegedly lost in the LA fires. We can't expect him to file an insurance claim. And of course, they're one number that I'm hearing over and over again, only on social media, not corroborated, but some are saying $30 million is the number that they're going to try to attach. That's so disgusting, especially when we consider how many people, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure that it's a huge number of people who lost their insurance just prior to the fires, who've now lost their property, their homes, and they will not be able to file insurance claims for those. And these are people that are not rich. Some of them are, I'm sure, obviously, but in that affluent area. But there are a lot of people who aren't rich, who had everything tied into those properties that they do not own anymore. They can't own because they're gone. Hunter Biden lost artwork, and he's allegedly, we don't have confirmation yet, but he's allegedly going to make claims for a lot of money to try to get out of this. This is the sickest thing I think I've heard from Hunter Biden, if it is true. And we're talking about a man who's done some of the sickest things we've ever seen from a human being, let alone a politician's son. Hunter Biden has no talent. He has no skills. His only, I guess, redeeming quality, if you want to call it that, is that he is the son of Joe Biden. That's it. That's his role in life since he's been an adult has been, hey, I am the son of Joe Biden. Pay me, Burisma. Pay me, whoever wants to buy influence by pretending they like my artwork. I mean, this has been who he is. And if there's anybody less deserving than Hunter Biden to receive insurance money from the LA fires, I don't know who that is. I couldn't imagine anybody that I would want to receive less money than Hunter Biden as a result of these fires. Everybody who's been affected is more deserving than Hunter Biden. But if there are any who might be involved in the insurance adjusting that may or may not take place regarding Hunter Biden's artwork, let's keep something in mind. That yes, was he able to sell some for hundreds of thousands of dollars in the past, some to cronies, some to random people, a lot of to foreign people who are buying influence or trying to buy influence through him? Yes, they did. But you cannot use that as a valuation because the fires happened after Joe Biden dropped out of the race. The fires happened after President Trump won the election, which means that as of that moment, we'll say not even when Joe dropped out because he was still president at the time. Let's just say from the moment that President Trump won the election, when it was determined that Joe Biden's influence would no longer exist, just a couple of months after that, at that point, I would argue that Hunter Biden's artwork went down to being worth zero, nothing. Absolutely, you'd have to pay me to take one of his pieces of art, and you'd have to pay me a lot of money to actually display it anywhere. And if I did take a lot of money to display it somewhere, I would make sure that everybody knew why it was being displayed. And we would turn it into a joke because Hunter Biden is a joke. His artwork is worth nothing. He shouldn't receive a single penny of insurance money because the moment that Joe Biden was out, his artwork went to zilch. And I pray that other people will receive money far more than Hunter Biden. National security agencies warn Trump inauguration is, quote, attractive potential target for threats. Now, this is one of those stories that I don't like to talk about. I'm sure you don't like to hear about, but we have to take it seriously. I mean, this is something that is legit. And I'm certain, to be clear, I'm certain that Donald Trump and his team, his close confidants, are all taking it seriously. The question is, how serious, and I don't want to start accusing any individuals, but how serious as a whole is the Secret Service? How serious is the FBI? As entities, not necessarily as individual people in there. I know there are patriots in the Secret Service. There are patriots in the FBI, but we know that there's also those that absolutely positively hate Donald Trump. They've been groomed in many ways to be like that. This article comes to us from the postmillennial.com. Hannah Nightingale over there. President-elect Donald Trump's Monday inauguration will be an attractive potential target for violence. U.S. national security agencies are warning, despite saying there are currently no specific credible threats against the event. A group of intelligence and law enforcement agencies wrote in a threat assessment that hasn't been released to the public, which was obtained by Politico, that potential perpetrators like those with election-related grievances may see the event as their last opportunity to influence the election results through violence. The threat assessment was compiled by the FBI, Secret Service, Capitol Police, the Washington, D.C. Government, and the Supreme Court's police. It laid out multitudes of scenarios that could occur, such as foreign terrorists, domestic extremists, and lone wolves initiating bomb hoaxes, drone flights, vehicle ramming attacks, and swatting calls. A wide array of possibilities that could be happening during the inauguration, as well as I'm just not very happy about Trump having a rally the day before the inauguration. It's like, oh my gosh, why? I just want to put him and everybody else who is a target. I want to protect them any way that we can, and that means not taking unnecessary risks. By no means am I suggesting that Trump or anybody else should be living in fear and not doing their job properly. I'm just saying there's no need to take unnecessary risks. For us, the best we can do is, if you're going to be there at the inauguration, lucky you. I wish I was going, but keep your eyes open. See something, say something. We know that from the first Trump attempted assassin that didn't necessarily work, but hey, who knows? Maybe it'll work this time. Maybe the deep state isn't going to be directly involved, and Thomas Crooks isn't, or not obviously him, but some variation of Thomas Crooks will not be trying their thing. I hate to voice these concerns, but I'm asking you, the reason that I'm voicing them at all is because I'm asking you to do what I'm going to be doing, which is to pray for the safety of President Trump and everybody there, not just the president himself. I don't want any violence at the inauguration. I don't want any violence anytime, but we know the inauguration is going to be a magnet for potential violence. Hopefully everybody's on their game. Hopefully everybody is diligent. They're paying attention. Hopefully the potential perpetrators, the terrorists, the assassins, whoever, hopefully they can be dissuaded from even attempting to do so, which is why I'm asking you to do as I will do, which is to pray for protections. For our president, for the vice president, for their families, for everybody who is in attendance there. We don't want any incidents at all, no violence. Let's just get through Inauguration Day and get started on making America great again. Get some executive orders signed, get some legislation passed, and just let them do their thing, uninterrupted, unhindered by the evil people that are out there trying to, or who may try to disrupt things. We'll just leave it at that.
In a world of uncertainty, be prepared with Silver Prepper Bars. Introducing the Silver Prepper Bar. Crafted from 0.999 pure silver and proudly made in the USA. Portable, perforated, and easily tradable, the Silver Prepper Bar is your lifeline in times of crisis. Silver Prepper Bars provide peace of mind. Don't leave your future to chance. Order your Silver Prepper Bars now at prepperbar.com. Silver Prepper Bars, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. Order now.
I'm Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. As Americans, we work hard every day to provide for our families and ensure their future. But with the uncertainty facing our economy, it is more important than ever to safeguard your wealth and protect your retirement savings. Educated investors look to safe haven assets to shield themselves from the economic storm. Tangible assets like gold and silver can provide stability, security, and most importantly, peace of mind. In 1997, the Taxpayer Relief Act allowed Americans wants to hold physical precious metals like gold and silver in their IRAs for the first time. Today, Genesis Gold Group helps our clients transfer existing IRAs, 401ks, and other retirement accounts into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free. With thousands of satisfied clients, 5-star reviews, and fully accredited with the Better Business Bureau, our experienced team is here to help you navigate the process, start to finish. Now is the time to educate yourself on the importance of a diversified portfolio, including tangible assets like gold and silver. Call now to receive our free wealth protection kit and digital dollar defense guide. Call now and we'll include our extremely popular silver prepper bar free when you open your account. Add it to your IRA or have it sent to your home. Call Genesis Gold Group today at 800-200-GOLD. Prepper bar only available through Genesis Gold Group.
4 ways Joe Biden is sabotaging Donald Trump on his way out of office. And I would argue that, number 1, it's not just Biden. Number 2, it's a lot more than 4. I could probably think of at least a dozen ways that they are sabotaging the White House, sabotaging Washington, D.C., sabotaging the government, and thereby sabotaging the nation for the sake of trying to protect their agenda while trying to subvert Trump's agenda before he even gets into power again. But then number 3, there is the notion that we don't know what we don't know. I mean, there are certain dozens, hundreds possibly, ways that the Biden regime is trying to sabotage the White House. And they have experience with this. A lot of them have experience because they tried to do the exact same thing or something similar back in 2016. The difference, though, the reason that I am much more I don't want to say excited. That's the wrong word. I'm excited about finding ways that there are people in government trying to destroy us. No, I am emboldened. I'm hopeful. There we go. There's that really complex word. I'm very hopeful that this time around the new Trump administration, especially with people such as Susie Wiles, will be able to sniff out and expose and end subversions. Not all of them. There's no way they can get to all of them. But I'm just hoping that they're going to find the next Eric Charmella or whoever, and they're not going to hire another H.R. McMaster or whoever. They're going to do things much better than they did in 2017. But this article comes to us from GlennBeck.com. The staff over there did a fantastic job of putting these 4 together, and I would say that 2 of them are big, 2 of them are not so big, but still worth noting. So let's just go through the list. President Biden has less than a week left in the White House, but that doesn't mean he's down for the count quite yet. Next Monday, January 20th, President-elect Trump will be officially sworn into office, marking the beginning of his second term. But after such a bitter and contentious election, the Democrats aren't ready to roll over. Instead, they have been working around the clock to ensure that Trump will face as many obstacles and challenges as possible the minute he is sworn in. These political landmines are designed to sabotage his presidency at the cost and well-being of the American people. Biden's approval rating, yada, yada, yada. Let's get to the list. Number 1, pardoning criminals. In November, President Biden customarily pardoned the Thanksgiving turkey along with his son Hunter and dozens of other controversial criminals, including 37 felons on death row. Hunter's 11-year-long blankets immunity sets a dangerous precedent for the future president, and we may never know the full extent of the Biden family's crimes and corruption. And that is the key there. It's not, when I first saw that on the list, I was thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to go after the criminals. Yes, that sucks, but that's not exactly sabotaging the White House, except it sort of is. Especially if they are using pardoning of Hunter Biden, using that as a way to cover up their crimes that perhaps the Trump administration would have wanted to go after had Hunter Biden not had immunity. So yeah, I agree with that one. Check. Number 2, and this is a big one, destroying U.S. energy. This is something that, we're seeing some good. I think California canceled their mandate for all electric trucks by whatever, some ludicrous deadline, because they were told that it wasn't going to be allowed. So they, instead of facing the futile uphill battle of trying to make that the thing, I guess they're just going to wait until the next Democrat is in the White House. But they're doing, the Biden administration, the regime is still doing quite a bit to try to hamper Trump's energy policy. Biden has made several moves that have damaged America's ability to produce its energy independently, including canceling the Keystone XL pipeline on his first day in office. Earlier this month, Biden signed another order that has dire consequences for the energy sector, effectively blocking any new drilling off the U.S. coast indefinitely. This not only further kneecaps the U.S. oil industry during a time when gas and energy prices are on the rise, but moreover, the way the executive order was written means Trump will have a much harder time undoing it. And we'll talk about that maybe today, probably on a future show. Number 3, escalating overseas wars. Of course, we had the peace agreement come through between the ceasefire, I shouldn't say peace agreement, the ceasefire and hostage deal come through between Hamas and Israel. There are some sticking points there. It's not a done deal yet, but it's very telling that Netanyahu called Trump before calling Biden. He knows who had the effect. But anyway, escalating overseas wars. America's involvement with the ongoing war in Ukraine has been tenuous from the beginning, but under Biden, it has escalated to a Cold War-like proxy war. Neither pleas from Americans in need nor threats from Russia have deterred Biden. He has approved countless aid packages sent to Ukraine totaling billions of dollars. Recently, Biden has decided to up the ante by supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles, despite Putin's warnings that Russia would consider this an act of war. It's almost like Biden wants to start World War III before handing the reins over to Trump. Now, the goal here, just to be clear, the goal here, and it's not Biden, it's Biden's handlers, Biden's puppet masters. Okay, Biden is just sitting there, oh, sign here, sign. Where's Corn Pop? No, it's the puppet masters that are getting their orders from the globalist elite cabal. And the reason that they want this war to be prolonged, because they have no illusion that Ukraine can win this. They want the war to be prolonged as much as possible because they want to, number one, cover up as much of their sins. Ukraine is a magnet for globalist sins. That's why, hey, where are we going to send Hunter? Let's send him to Ukraine and have him work for Burisma. That was no accident. Why did they get rid of Viktor Shokin? Why did Biden specifically go after Viktor Shokin? Because he was going after corruption. That's a discussion for another day as well. But I would also argue that everything that the Biden regime has done in the last couple of months to try to expand and extend the war against Russia, to use Ukraine as a proxy to do damage, it may have, stay with me on this, it may have actually helped Trump a little bit. Because basically, he's going to be, the more that they go after Russia, the more that they, being the globalist elite cabal and the Biden regime, the more that they support Ukraine and go after Russia, the more clear it will be that Trump's policy will be different. Now, I don't know, it's been conspicuously obscure, we'll say. There's been a lot of ambiguity about what Trump will do with Ukraine. We know that he's going to try to talk to Vladimir Putin, that he's going to try to negotiate peace there. He wants to be the ultimate peacemaker, and I don't think any administration is more qualified to do that than not just this Trump administration, but either Trump administration. Lest we forget, we had the Abraham Accords prior to Biden coming in and having all the debacles that we've had in the Middle East since then. But with that said, the Ukraine situation is one that they're trying to escalate, but not for the sake, they don't think that Putin's going to launch nukes before Trump gets into office, and they definitely don't think that Putin's going to launch nukes after Trump's in office. That would be ludicrous. They do, though, hope that they can buy themselves time to cover up their corruption. And we're not just talking about the Biden regime. We're talking about people like Nancy Pelosi. We're talking about people like, oddly enough, this one comes out of left field, right? But people like Mike Pence, people that have connections in Ukraine. Mitt Romney. Oh, does he have connections in Ukraine? And yes, of course, oddly enough, again, Anthony Fauci. But the Ukraine conspiracies, I could do 2 weeks worth of shows just on Ukraine conspiracies. And we're not just talking about conspiracy theories. Oh, Ukrainians are aliens. No, it's not about that. I'm talking about actual, verifiable, or at least highly likely, real conspiracies. The place is, it's a quagmire. It's a cesspool of corruption. And it's not just the Ukrainian oligarchs. They bring in corruption from everywhere. It's sort of like the Vegas of the world. It's like, what happens in Ukraine stays in Ukraine. And that's what they're trying to do, is make sure that as much of their sins do stay in Ukraine. And then last but not least, and this is the biggest one, installing a shadow cabinet. For years, Glenn has warned of the dangers of the deep state, and its very existence has been denied until recently. Shortly after the election, Democrat Rep. Wiley Nickel made a disturbing speech on the House floor where he proposed the creation of a shadow cabinet designed to hamper the Trump administration and to step in if Trump were removed from office. This shadow cabinet would be composed of Democrat counterpicks to Trump's presidential cabinet members, and they would scrutinize every act made by the Trump administration and propose alternative actions. This just proves that the deep state will do anything to stop President Trump. And it's not just a shadow cabinet. You know, when I first saw that, the first thing that I was thinking of were people like Eric Ciaramella, people that are actually in these departments. We've already heard there was a recent poll that said that as much as half of government employees, White House employees, people that work for the presidential administration, carryovers from the Biden regime, at least half of them are going to oppose Trump in some way. Now, Lord willing, we'll be able to sniff out those who are going to actually act on it. Look, if somebody has an ideology that's different from the president, but they're still willing to go out there and do their job, I don't care. They could be a Democrat, they could be a socialist, they could be whatever. As long as they're doing their job, I don't care. I really don't. Okay. Again, I'm talking about your average day-to-day, mid-level, low-level employee within the government. I'm not talking about the leaders. That's a different story. I'm talking about, the workers, the worker bees. Okay, you can't just say, well, we only want loyalists to be worker bees. You'd never get there. I mean, by the time you actually were able to get halfway through, it would be 4 years, and they'd all end up probably getting fired anyway by the next administration, unless it was JD Vance. But we'll talk about that again, hopefully in 3 or 4 years. No, I'm talking about the people that concern me are the people like Eric Ciaramella, the people that are going to stay in government, continue to work on behalf of the executive branch, and then use their position to try to subvert the Trump administration, try to subvert Agenda 47. And there's going to be a lot of people like that. So it's not just a shadow cabinet. It's not just some deep state plot. It's also the actual deep state worker bees, the people that are in there, and we don't know how many there are, but the people who are in there who will try to stop President Trump from making America great again. Those are big risks, and the Biden regime in their final days are trying to embed as many of those treacherous people into the administration, into permanent seats in the deep state, the deep state worker bees, trying to get as many of them on their side as possible. Warning, Google strikes deal with AP to enhance Gemini AI chatbot with real-time news. Now, you can read the whole article over at discern.tv, but I just want to cut to the chase here. This is an acceleration faster than one I would have expected. We knew that there was going to be an eventual merger between artificial intelligence and the news. Why? Because it makes sense. I've long said that the biggest challenge with AI is not that it's going to become Skynet and we're going to have robot dogs flying around with machine guns. It's not that it's going to just replace all of us and make it to where none of us have jobs anymore. That's probably going to happen, by the way. That's not the biggest challenge. No, the biggest challenge with AI is that it's going to work. It's going to make things, quote unquote, easier for us. It's going to make us dependent. And we are going to, at least in the short term, we are going to have our lives enhanced in many ways as a result of artificial intelligence, especially artificial general intelligence. But in the meantime, we're going to be using these AI agents that, such as Gemini, and it'll make things easier. And it makes sense in a lot of ways, especially in an industry like legacy media. They are dying. They need better revenue sources. And they're losing their viewership already, so they might as well cut a deal with the devil, right? The devil in this case, of course, is Google. And as far as Gemini is concerned, and to be clear, OpenAI, ChatGPT, has already cut deals with other news organizations and with the AP. The idea here is that they can take in real-time news as it happens and disseminate it through AI agents that'll be on your phone, on your computer, hopefully, Lord willing, not in your Neuralink or anything like that. Hopefully, you're not going to get it beamed directly into your head, but you're going to be able to get real-time news in a way that is very different from it is today. Sure, we've got apps, great. We got websites we can go to, great. But imagine being able to go to this one place and it's able to take the news and present it to you how you want it, whether you want it long or short, whether you want it biased in one direction, biased in a different direction. It will be able to not just read the news, but learn how you want the news presented to you. It'll be able to pull from multiple sources. It will be able to, in many ways, improve the way that we ingest our news. It'll give us the news that we want to hear. It'll give us the news. It'll present the news in a way that we want to hear it or read it or whatever, and it'll make things easier. Again, this move in a bubble doesn't do a whole lot to harm us, other than it will, of course, enhance the bias of the artificial intelligence agents that utilize it for data, because the Associated Press is left-wing, as are, I'm certain, pretty much every news outlet that ChatGPT and Gemini and all the others, maybe not Grok, but all the others will grab. They're going to take left-leaning perspectives and biases and integrate that into their AI further than what they've already done, because they have already done that to some extent. Is this a huge risk? No. This is just, it's a step. It's a step towards not just integration, but implementation into our day-to-day lives. And every step brings us closer to the future that I am most concerned about, and that's one where, again, maybe not you, maybe not me, but the vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of people in Western society are not only dependent upon artificial intelligence to be able to survive, but they are essentially slaves to it. The city of Huntington Beach is trying to defy the state of Commiefornia and their sanctuary state status. Now, I've said for years, off and on, that the most important elections, by far, are your city and local elections. More important than the presidential election, more important than senators or congressmen, even more important than your gubernatorial elections or your state legislatures. It is the city councils, the mayors, the school boards, the city and local elections, and county elections, to be clear. We'll classify all that in there together. Those people, many of whom you don't even know their names, have far more of a direct impact on your day-to-day lives than the president or anybody else in government. They have a direct effect against you, and the people of Huntington Beach are hopefully learning this, and hopefully in a good way. Here is City Attorney Michael Gates declaring what's going to be happening next week.
Huntington Beach is poised to declare itself a non-sanctuary city. At the next council meeting on Tuesday, there's going to be an initiative presented to City Council for adoption, declaring the city non-sanctuary status, meaning that it will coordinate and cooperate with federal agencies and fully effectuate all the tools available, both at the local, state, and federal level, for best practices to combat.
Good on them, good on them. Somebody needs to be pushing back against Commifornia's radical agenda, radical policies. Democrats have controlled the state, both the state legislature as well as the governorship for a very long time. They've also been able, and by control, I mean a super control. It's like 70, well over anything that could. Republicans can't mount a defense in the state of California, but in individual cities and individual counties, it is still possible. And the majority of counties, by the way, to be clear, I know this is crazy, but the majority of counties, not by population, but just by the sheer numbers of counties and landmass, most of California is relatively conservative, at least more conservative than the radicals in Sacramento, San Francisco, Oakland, and LA. It's night and day. But unfortunately, the vast populations in the big cities of California are radically Democrat, and they do control the government, at least at the state level. At the city, local, and county levels, you can actually make an impact, and Huntington Beach is proving that. And I would argue that along with these individual cities and their mayors, city councils, school boards, and various commissioners at the county level, it is the sheriff. The sheriff is arguably the most important person to in any election in any given county. That person will have a very much a direct control, not just on on what affects you, like laws that could affect you, but perhaps more importantly, on crimes that could affect you. And so, good on Huntington Beach pushing against the sanctuary state status of California. Whether you've been a prepper for a long time, or maybe you're just getting started, you're just looking around and thinking how crazy it is, we usually cover the basics. You get your food, you get your water, you get your ammunition. Don't forget your ammo. You get your battery chargers, solar battery chargers, or whatever. But a lot of times I think people will forget their meds. Okay, whether it's chronic meds, antibiotics, I think a lot of people don't even realize that you can stock up on that stuff. They go to the doctor, they go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, oh, here's your 2-month supply or whatever. Well, you can actually stock up on a lot of these meds by going to jdrucker.com/meds. You'll talk to the good folks over at Jace Medical. They can get you a 12-month supply of certain prescription drugs. They can get you emergency meds, all sorts of good stuff, things that you may or may not need, but it's always good to have it on hand, because I guarantee you, even if you don't think you need it today, you might need it in the future. jdrucker.com/meds. Here's a true story. I was testing out some coffee. This has been almost a year ago. Testing out some coffee for a potential sponsor. And I had made the coffee, and I went about my morning routine, did my work, doing my thing, and then I took my first sip of coffee. And it struck me. I'm like, holy crap. I had forgotten that I was testing out this new coffee. I just took the first sip, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And then I remembered, oh my gosh, this is Promised Grounds. This is the stuff that they sent me. So I started drinking some more of it, and I have become a lifetime customer of Promised Grounds. They are a Christian coffee company, which I know you don't see a whole lot of them. They give back to the community. They're Texas, all American, all Texan, just like a lot of the stuff that we do. Check them out. Go to jdrucker.com/coffee, jdrucker.com/coffee, and check out Promised Grounds. It's great. Study says nearly 400 million Christians persecuted globally, and Islamism and Communism are the main driving forces. It's just that headline alone from Breitbart.com is enough to spark plenty of conversation. We could talk about that for hours, even days, but we're not going to. Don't worry. But this article comes from Francis Martel, and it's so very true. And I'm very glad to see, by the way, I'm glad to notice that Breitbart has been focusing more and more on Christian persecution, not just here in the United States, but worldwide. It's been a topic that I think they shied away from for a bit, but it seems to be coming front and center once again, as it should. According to the article, the Christian aid organization Open Doors published its annual World Watch List, a ranking of the most dangerous places in the world to practice the Christian faith, on Wednesday, which found that 380 million Christians around the world face severe persecution. Now, here's the thing. We talk about religious freedom here in the United States, as we should, because this is where we are. We are an America First podcast. We're an America First organization. So, yes, we are going to focus here, but at the end of the day, let's call it like it is. The persecution that we face as Christians in the United States is infinitesimal compared to the persecution, the oppression, the very real risks that are faced by hundreds of millions of Christians worldwide. There are many, many Christians out there, many of our brothers and sisters, who are not only persecuted, but who risk their very lives just to be able to praise and to adore and to worship our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We don't face that. Not in the same ballpark, not on the same planet. Okay? We have persecution here, don't get me wrong, and we need to fight that. But let us also remember that our degree of persecution is very low on the spectrum of Christian persecution worldwide. Back to the article. Christian persecution, which Open Doors defines as any hostile action toward a person or community motivated by their identification with the person of Jesus Christ, is particularly prevalent in countries with widespread Islamist terrorism or run by communist regimes. Go figure. Of the top 10 countries on the World Watch List, Islamic radicalism is the driver of persecution in 8 of them, while the other 2, North Korea and Eritrea, are under the yoke of communist regimes. Of the 380 million Christians facing persecution, in many cases, including deadly attacks, 310 million of them are in the top 10 nations in the list. Half of these countries are in Africa, and 3 are in the Middle East. Afghanistan is in South Asia. North Korea is an outlier in the Far East region, though bordering the number 15 country on the list, its longtime patron, China. The number of Christians facing violence, displacement, arrest, sexual violence, or other persecution around the world has steadily increased through the 2020s. This year's tally is 20 million more Christians than the total open doors identified in the 2022 edition of its study. In 2020, Open Doors estimated that 260 million Christians faced high levels of persecution. This is not a problem that's going to go away. It's only going to get worse. The Bible tells us this. If we are indeed in the end days, then persecution is not only going to expand worldwide, it is going to come here. And I've long said that many of the agendas that we see, many of the especially leftist and globalist agendas that we see manifesting here in the United States are not just attacks on freedom. They're not just attacks on the Constitution or even on common sense. They are, at the end of the day, their primary goal is to be an attack on the faith, whether it's abortion, LGBTQIA plus supremacy, just wokeness in general, the whole, DEI thing. That's an attack on the faith. And you might say, how? But that's about diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, it's not. DEI is about division. DEI is about forcing people to pick sides. And when they pick the wrong side, that side demands that they oppose the Christian faith. We saw it last week when Christopher Hitchens no, it wasn't Christopher Hitchens. Who was it? Richard Dawkins. Sorry, wrong atheist. The living atheist. Richard Dawkins left the Freedom from Religious Foundation because they decided to embrace LGBTQIA plus supremacy. They decided to endorse the trans supremacy agenda. And as Dawkins rightly noted, that's anti-science. And the whole idea of at least the original idea, or what he thought was the idea of the Freedom from Religious Foundation, was to advance science, to advance biology, to advance a worldly understanding of things. That was his idea, and it wasn't just him. But we're seeing the merging of woke ideologies with anti-Christian ideologies, all meeting in the center to attack the faith. Most of the people that are involved in it don't even realize it, just as many of you don't realize it. But that's really what this is about. So yes, I am very happy that Breitbart and other publications are focusing more on Christian persecution, focusing more on advancing freedom of religion. And to be clear, I am not, people often say, oh, you're just pushing for theocracy. By no means. God forbid. We are not capable of having a theocracy, not until Jesus Christ comes back down to earth to rule. Until then, we have to advance the idea of freedom of religion. It's not for the sake of, oh, I really want the religion of the spaghetti monster to be able to worship their fictional God. No, it's not about that. That's irrelevant. I want to make sure that you and I and everybody else who is a Bible-believing Christian in the world is able to do so. Now, it's an uphill battle. I'm not going to win. We're not going to win. Okay? If we read our Bibles, then we'll see that this type of persecution is only going to expand. It's only going to advance. We can fight it, and we must fight it, but we have to fight it with the understanding that we're fighting for the sake of trying to preserve and to empower and to enlighten as many people as possible, not with the thinking that we're going to win the battles. We have to just understand we're just trying to win the war, and that war has already been won for us on our behalf. So it can seem daunting, but if you are a Bible-believing Christian, you've read your book, you know how the story ends. And it doesn't end well for those who are trying to persecute us today. The good news is we are almost there, folks. Almost there. Lord willing, nothing happens today, tonight, tomorrow, or over the weekend. Hopefully we go into Monday as conflict-free as possible. Hopefully there are no truly bad forces that are going to act on or before or after. Let's just express the entirety of our hope. We hope that nothing bad happens to President Trump or his team or his supporters or the nation or anybody. I mean, that's just who we are. And we only have, 3-4 days left. So I think we can make it. Final home stretch. Gosh, if I believed in superstition, I'd be finding wood to knock on it right now. One quick note. We are over at prepperfarms.com. We are running a special just on the original steak. I think it's called beef steak. The 1-pack, 4-pack, and 10-pack products. If you use promo code STEAK40, that's one word, STEAK40, STEAK 40, then you will receive 40% off, but only on those items. Okay, it's our most popular item. We're trying to clear out some space so we can get in ground beef, so we can get in chicken. So go ahead and take advantage of that while supplies last. 40% off. Never been done before. Steak 40 and only for the original steak, the beef steak products. You'll see them there. Lord willing. Oh, before I go, I do want to I want to play something for y'all. I played it yesterday or the day before, but I want to play it again because as we prepare for Trump to get back into office, by golly, I want to get excited.
Trump has left the building.
Over. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. Donald Trump wins the presidency.
What started off as unlikely, impossible, is now reality.
I will fight for you with every breath in my body, and I will never, ever let you down.
We have a president who actually fulfilled the promises he made during the campaign. Securing the border to foreign policy.
He now has a record as president that's pretty damn impressive.
Breaking news out of Palm Beach,
The FBI has executed an unprecedented search warrant at President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate.
The former president has both sides of the political aisle up in arms.
It is a dangerous and unstable moment in American history.
The Justice Department has just indicted former President Donald Trump.
For 7 years, they hated him, they targeted him, they hunted him.
This is the epitome of the abuse of the prosecutorial power to preempt political decisions.
I never thought anything like this could happen in America. The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. They're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way, and I will never be moving. On November 5th, 2024, justice will be done. We will take back our country, and we will make America great again. America will always rise to every challenge and overcome every danger.
Donald Trump seems to always get stronger when challenged. These types of things, I think, give him strength.
When I'm reelected, I will totally obliterate the deep state. As long as we have pride in our beliefs, courage in our convictions, and faith in our God, then we will not fail.